What's up, people? What's up, people? What's up, people? It's your boy MM2K back again with another episode of Stadia Live Session. Please let me know how the mic sounds. I had to do a real janky setup and how the volumes are, if I sound far away, all that stuff. I had to do a real janky setup. Hold on one second, y'all. Like, if y'all can see this setup right now, y'all be cracking up, man. And it's ironic because the reason why I did this setup is very much in tune with what we're going to talk about today. So it's just funny how things work, man. But shout out to everybody that's here. Can y'all hear me good? Collins says it sounds fine. Shout out to Collins. Matter of fact, let me shout out this chat. This beautiful, beautiful chat. We got Collins Dynasty in the house. He says, I'm here for the conversation. Ron Slusher says, hot topic. We got Windstar Henry V that says, morning all. Raven Anime, peek up. Hey, yo, Zero Games for me with the popcorn. Good to see you again, my friend. Monkey Boy in the house. He says, really sad, man, makes no sense. Who else we got up in here? I think that's everybody for right now. Yeah, definitely do us a huge favor. Shot this out, like share this out. Let everybody know that we're live. Because this is going to be a very, very serious discussion. I'm tweeting this out right now, and I excuse the squeaky chair. Which I know the squeaky chair is my favorite chair. I wanted to buy a new chair. My wife told me I had to wait until we moved. Which, real quick, because I know y'all here for the topic, but as we're letting the chat fill up, I want everybody to get a piece of this. And this is something for everybody to participate in. I want everybody that's part of the Stadia community that has experience with the platform, that plays it, that played it. I want them to be part of this discussion. You know what I'm saying? Because here's what I'm hoping that this will contribute to. I'm hoping that this will contribute to Stadia or Ubisoft or whoever getting a good gauge of the importance of 60 frames per second to what part of the populace. You know what I'm saying? Like, I kind of feel the reason why we got 60 frames per second on what do you call it? Immortals is because there was that expectancy that it was supposed to be there, and people pushed back. And when people pushed back, Ubisoft said, "Yeah, we're coming out with it later." You know what I'm saying? And they came out with it like a couple weeks later, because that was a fast-paced moving game, and people was like, "Look, we gotta get 60 frames per second here." And with the other games that Ubisoft may have put out that didn't have it, instead of us doing the same thing, what we did is we said, well, this is more photorealistic, so we don't mind that, or we used it as weapons against each other within the community. And I don't think that's the best way to handle situations like this. So we're going to talk about what I propose, or what I feel is the best way to move forward, regardless of what side of the fence that you're on, and who we should be approaching about this. You know what I'm saying? And there's more than one group. And I would say that, you know, there's a certain chronological order that you want to do all this. So we're going to talk about it. But let me know if y'all can still hear me. We still got more people coming in. Who else we got up in here? We got Bulls for Life. What's going on, brother? Good to see you. Victor Del Maestro, he says, so Stadia isn't next gen according to Ubisoft. Now, to be fair, Vic, I don't think Stadia ever said they were next gen. Like, if you look at that Phil Harrison, Maj Bakar, and John Linneman interview, John Linneman specifically asked Phil Harrison, not Phil, did I say Phil Spencer? Not Phil Spencer, Phil Harrison. Phil Harrison, Maj Bakar, and John Linneman. And John Linneman specifically said, hey, what was like, even though you're saying these are the capabilities versus the 8th gen consoles, which are the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One, You know there's new generation consoles coming. So how do you feel about Stadia stacking up against them? And Phil Harrison completely said, I'm not worried about it. I don't know what their specs are. I don't know what their capabilities are. And us trying to run neck and neck with them is circumvents our goal. I'm not even worried about it. That's basically what he said. Now, Vic, I know what you were doing. You were being facetious to those that say Stadia is next gen, but I just wanted to be clear to those that may think that oh man, Stadia was supposed to compete, performance-wise and everything to the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox. I mean, the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox. That's not the case. Something's going on. I'm trying to tweet this out, and for some reason I can't tweet anything else out. It's active. Okay, all right, whatever. All right, but shout out to y'all in the chat. Thank y'all very much. I appreciate all of y'all. Let's let people know that we are live. What the heck is going on here? Can y'all hear? And I saw where y'all said y'all could hear me good, but I just want to double check one more time, because if y'all heard, how does it sound? I know there's this annoying hissing sound that for some reason when I talk, you hear it, and when I don't talk, you don't hear it. I done stripped this PC apart and I looked up every single video to try to figure this out, and I just can't. But trust me, I'm very cognizant of it. But I thank you very much for coming through despite that. Hopefully it's gone now. Who else we got in the house? Geek to Sneaks says, what up, MM? We got Sneaky Ray Sherrod, Sneaky behind Ray Sherrod in the house. Porter John says, yo. Victor Delmeister said, I already tweeted Phil Harrison about FC Fiasco. PS5 and Xbox Series X can't run it in 60 frames per second. I don't know, Geek. They can't run it without ray tracing. But I don't think that's the concern that people have, because the tech enthusiasts that care about 60 frames per second the most aren't even all up in arms about ray tracing. Like, I think that wing is over it. You know what I'm saying? If it comes, it comes. Like, supposedly it's supposed to come with cores. There has been no official announcement besides some things that the developers of course have uttered and said, yeah, expect it in our game, and then they had to delete tweets. We don't know. But from what I've seen, like different breakdowns, the PS5 and the Xbox Series X can't run it in 60 with ray tracing on. But that's indifferent to us, because we weren't expecting or getting ray tracing with the game anyway. So who else we got in? We got Fabio 777. He says Assassin's Creed Valhalla 4K Stadia. Okay, I got you. I can dig it. KG Grim 25. Hey everyone, shout out to KG in the house. And KG, thank you for becoming a member. For some reason, KG, it's KJ. Hey KJ, for some reason, when I was trying to put you on the ticker, it wasn't going through. So I don't want you to think I was slighting you, bro. I think we got it fixed. I'm just having all types of issues. You know what? I think Facebook may block me. Can't post no more. Do us a huge favor though. Let people know that we're live. I'm gonna post in one more place. We'll know that we're live. And that's that. Post it there. Now come back. All right, y'all. So here's the irony of all this. Yeah, zero. I'm with you, bro. As soon as your thing comes up, I'm gonna highlight it. I'm with you 1,000%, bro. 60 frames per second better is over ray tracing. Clayton Young says, what's up, Stadia fam? Geek says, I run some of my games on PC with high graphics, 1080p 60, and they look at, yeah, exactly. Yeah. If the textures, this is what people don't get. If the textures are good and the resolution is crispy, you know what I'm saying? You can run it at 1080. I still need like 1440p though. That's me. I still need I can rock out with 1440p. Zero Games for me says 60 frames per second is bigger than ray tracing, and Geek to Sneaks comment. So before we get into the tasty goodness, I do want to say this. me see if I can. My whole setup is messed up. Wait till y'all hear what happened. I think y'all gonna get a kick out of this. Now I know I can be long-winded at first and bring up these long stories, like, you know, if y'all watch Rachel Maddow, she goes into this long pilgrimage of story before she gets to the topic. That's how I roll, because I like bringing you from point A to point Z as far as the thought process behind this. We do things differently here, and I think that's why y'all appreciate it. We're not we don't play your elevator music and do the hey, and today in today's news. We rock differently. That's why we could do that, and y'all appreciate it, and y'all stick with us. And we really appreciate y'all for doing this, because we can't do this without y'all. So different strokes for different folks, and I get it. It's not for everybody, but for those that it is for, come on and join us. You know what I'm saying? If it's not for you, there's plenty of other content creators and so forth that, you know, will sit there and play the elevator music for you and nibble on the cheese. Yes, this is the news for today. You know what I'm saying? But we don't do that here. We go through a long soliloquy of information to bring you from point A to point Z, because we're trying to break down and we're trying to highlight facts. Shout out to Fandom Gaming. He says, we need Batman Arkham. All right, and then I got my board working. Let's see how it do today. Before we get into all this crazy mayhem, let's talk about this first. This is Caring from the Cloud Super Estate Extravaganza charity event. It kicked off this past weekend, and man, oh man, even though I was off air for the weekend because something crazy happened, I'm gonna talk about it because it all ties into this, trust me. This was a great event. It is hosted by John Scar. Shout out to John, and they had so much participation, so many codes and stuff, and things were given out because they were donated. It was kicked off by Helix Cloud Gaming, our friends over in UK, Richie and them. Then John Scar came on. Then Codex, the homie Codex, came in and was doing his FIFA 22 thing. The homie, PNTS's own Peter Cottontail, came on and played some Black Flag. Fantastic port on the platform. Connor Wilson came on and played some Terraria, and that wrapped it up. It's going to be even bigger next week with Project Storm going. He's going to be third in line after Rock. Then my spiritual advisor Clive is going to be on. It's going to kick off with John again, the homie Rock. Stadia Rocks, a rock show. We got Vivi in the house. We got Scooterama, and we got the homie Vet coming in. I'm not going to be in until the following week, where we're going to, I don't know what we're going to do the third week, but in the final week of Old Dirty Blasters, Division 2 clan, we're going to be doing something. I got to get with Tommy Rocks and company. But I just wanted to show y'all that fantastic thing that's happening every Saturday. Something great for the community, to get the community together. Definitely go to fourscarsgaming.com. Fourscarsgaming.com to get more information on that. Shout out to Cloud Gaming Dad. CGD, were you on there? I thought you were. No, you weren't on that week. Okay. But shout out to Cloud Gaming Dad in the house. The world's favorite gaming dad. Codex in the house. Codex, good to see. I'm gonna put Cloud Gaming Dad, Collins, Lukey's not here right now. I'm gonna put these guys on the spot right now because I already asked for their permission. They said it was okay. But I was gonna do it in the form of a tweet, but some crazy things happened. I'm about to explain it. Bear with me. On our kickoff, you know what? Now that I think, no, I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait on that. I'm gonna wait. I know I'm all over the place, but shout out to Cloud Gaming Dad, Collins, Lukey6. I'm gonna wait on that one. Just stay tuned. You only got one more day. Stay tuned tomorrow. You got one more day. We're gonna talk about it. Okay. But shout out to those fine gentlemen there. All right. So let's go back and let's talk about what happened to me over the weekend and how it all relates to the topic. So this weekend, there was no SML podcast. Y'all know that, right? And there was no SML podcast. Excuse the squeaky chair if y'all hear it. I gotta grip my teeth. There was no SML podcast because the house that we're buying, me and my wife, we've been fortunate and blessed enough to where we've been looking for 3 years, y'all, for a house, and we finally found a house. And the complication is that my wife works at night. She has to be at work at 4 a.m. And in the wintertime up here, up in Pennsylvania, when it snows, I mean, she works at a hospital, so there is no, I got to call off. She can't call off. Like, she got to be there, especially now with COVID and everything. So when the snow is bad and the roads are bad, she has to walk to work. You know what I mean? And she has to be in close enough vicinity in order to walk to work, because we don't live on a bus line. Like, we're like in this like little small, what do they call it, cul-de-sac or whatever, you know, this little small area community, you know what I'm saying? And it's not on a bus line, so she has to walk to work, right? Well, we finally found a house that is close enough to walk to, but it's right there on the bus line. Like, the bus comes right in front of our house. And another problem is that property values just shot up. This is like a seller's market around here. You know, you talk about homes that maybe were $120,000. Now they're being sold. They were $120,000 2 years ago. Now that ever since Google has expanded here, they're now $1 million homes. It's like, it's crazy here. It's insanity here. So as we're looking for homes, we're like, no, this ain't worth $500,000. We're not paying that for a home. Like, no. So that was our complication over the last few years. We finally found a home. In our new home, there has to be work done, because we got it at a good value, because there's work that needs to be done. And the seller, we felt like, was trying to be slick and was selling it at a discount, hoping that nobody noticed it. But we noticed it, and we made it part of the agreement. Like, bro, you got to fix this stuff. You know what I mean? And we'll chip in. We get that the market value is very low in this house, so we'll chip in on some stuff. But you gotta, like, you can't be slick. Like, there was a big sewer pipe that had to be burst and it had to be fixed, all that stuff, right? So we found another problem that it had to be addressed, and I had to dedicate my whole weekend to that. Saturday and Sunday, with the agent, the seller, and everything. Finally come back home yesterday, and instead of me relaxing because I was tired and maybe getting more things ready for the premiere of PNTS 4.0 that's going to launch tomorrow, something said, no, MM2K, you need to get your second PC together. You need to get your second PC together, and you need to get ready to, like, get your setup ready so you can stream some of these PC games that you got, or other platforms or whatever. Because the great thing about Stadia is because it's in the cloud and it performs so well, it's so light on the resources, I can make Stadia look so crispy even on a web browser, crank everything up, and it don't affect my gameplay at all. However, if I'm playing natively on PC, nope, I don't get that. I don't get that luxury. Even when I run my game from my capture card, or to my capture card from my PlayStation 5, there are encoding issues for whatever reason. But for some reason, for Stadia, it's just so easy. But something was like, Moz, get your second, I got a second PC that's been sitting here. Very powerful NVIDIA card and all this other stuff. And then when you do it that way, it makes it easier for your encoding and stuff like that. I'm not going to give y'all all the secrets. The game is to be sold, not to be told. I ain't going to tell y'all everything right now. But there are a lot of reasons on why it's important to maybe have a second PC when you want to do some serious encodings. And I got a powerful PC here to do that. So I set that up. It took me all day to set it up. And after I set it up all day, like literally I didn't get done till midnight, and I had to get up in 2 hours and take my wife to work, I said to myself, damn, that was a waste of time. Only to drop her off, take a little quick nap, get up, and see this news. See this news about Far Cry 6. So the question is, with Far Cry 6, there supposedly is not going to be a 60 frames per second mode for Stadia, right? And I'm looking at y'all in the chat. Fandom Gaming asks, do you have any great news to give us, maybe insider on new games? I don't have any insider information on anything as of yet. The last inside information I got, which was proven and seems to be really relevant is that Stadia execs and the brass there, they're really putting their head down and they're working to get more of these games that just popped out of nowhere, or games that they probably weren't sure if they were coming to. They're looking to shore up deals and get games to the platform. They understand that's the biggest argument against the platform right now, is that there are no games on there, and they're working hard to get games to the platform. You know what I'm saying? And that they were doubling down and working with the devs to get more cooperation out of the devs. Now, has it come to fruition yet? Doesn't seem like it. Because now we're starting to see more and more games as of late miss the amenities that we've been used to. Like, we're used to a 4K 30 mode and a 1080p or 1200p or 1400p 60 performance mode. And the last several games, I won't say all of them, but out of the last cluster of games that we got, somebody's missing 4K, or they ain't got no 60 frames per second, or something. It's just the amenities that we're used to, we're not seeing all of a sudden. Okay, so I get why there's a lot of questions. So I'm gonna give you my thoughts on this. And when I share my thoughts are not to be taken as this is the way to go. This is how you gotta handle Stadia. You gotta love it or else. Absolutely not. That's not my thought. I mean, you know what I'm saying? That's not my thoughts. Or you can't, this is my opinion on 60 frames per second. My biggest pull to this platform, as I just mentioned, like I had a second powerful PC sitting here that I could have been hooked up. It's been sitting here for 2 years. Like, the card necessarily ain't outdated. You know what I'm saying? I could get, there are newer cards since it's been sitting here, but it's still powerful than the majority of PCs that are out here. I could have been hooked that thing up and could have been rendering top-notch looking games from other platforms. I didn't have a need to, because either the games that I wanted to play or the fact that I was willing to wait for games that were coming to the platform, like you're looking at Jedi Fallen Order on the screen right now. I was willing to wait for those games to come, played and streamed fantastic on Stadia, on a browser. So why in the hell would I, hook this thing up and go through the cumbersome stuff that I had to go through last night? So that was one of the biggest reasons. And then and I'm not trying to gain sympathy from this, but I have two stigmas in my eyes. I'm blind as a bat. You know what I'm saying? Y'all have heard me say this here and there. Like, I'm nothing against those that have visual impairments, but I got two really bad stigmas in my eyes. So it's I got goggles, I call them, but without my glasses, it is very hard for me to see. Like, I can't see at all. You know what I'm saying? At all. So because I wear glasses and most of my job is sitting in front of a computer, like hours within hours of a day, whether I'm working from home or not, that has had an effect on my eyes. They even had to order me a special monitor, all this stuff, to where now that I play on Stadia and I'm used to gaming at 60 frames per second, my eyes have adjusted to that new norm. So it's Stadia's fault. I'm blaming Stadia. My eyes have adjusted to that new norm, to where now if I try to play 30 frames per second, my eyes water up and I get headaches. I can't play 30. You have to do some very good, smooth 30 frames per second, which I've only seen from PlayStation, like for Last of Us or whatever. I don't know if it's the motion blur or something, but something that they implement in their 30 frame per second games to where I can play them and enjoy them. So if we had that same situation on Stadia, you know what I'm saying, then you would get less chirping from me personally. Doesn't mean I still wouldn't fight for my fellow tech enthusiasts, because a lot of them, their enjoyment is in the 60 frames per second because of the smoothness. And I get a lot of people don't get that. But to you, I say, imagine going back to 480p. Or the UHF, VHF days. Remember when you had to flip the switch? When it was analog and it was static in your gameplay. A lot of you wouldn't go back to that. That's how going from 60 frames per second to less means to a lot of gamers. It really enhances their gaming experience, and they feel like that's the norm that they want to experience. And when Stadia was advertised, they did put in a disclaimer that, like, look, there's going to be games where we want, 4K, 60, or both, but it's up to the developer, so you're not always going to get that. They put that disclaimer in there, but the way things were marketed and talked about, we thought that way more often than not on the big, especially the big ticket games, where 4K and 60, particularly 60 frames per second, would be most important. We thought that would be a norm. We didn't think there would be a guessing game. There might be random situations where it didn't happen. Serious Sam 4, you know what I'm saying? Final Fantasy, Baldur's Gate, you know what I'm saying? Stuff like that. Like a Final Fantasy 15, even though I've never played that game on Stadia, even though they say that port is bad, if the port was good, 30 frames per second there would be understandable. 30 frames per second on Baldur's Gate, to me, is just fine. I just got to get back into that game. It's not a problem. But it's the fast pace in the action games where it causes me a problem. And for others, it dampens their experience. I think we're just putting a number to it, and we're being too transactional about it when we think about it. Like, I think a lot of people look at it like, I don't mind 60 frames per second, so those that are making 60 frames per second seem like it's a big deal, or going over the top because I don't need 60 frames per second. That's thinking of this whole thing too transactional and too much of a transactional function. You got to think of overall experience. If I force my children to do nothing, okay, let me give you an example. For years, because I didn't want my kids messing with my games, my boys, the 7th generation with the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360, I forced them to have a PlayStation 3 because I didn't play PlayStation 3. I played Xbox 360. They were not allowed to get a 360 because once they got a 360, and I felt like they're like me, they would have felt like the experience was superior. Once they got a 360, they would have seen that they would have felt like the experience was superior, and they wouldn't want to go back to the PlayStation 3. And because they didn't want to go back to the PlayStation 3, they would be in my catalog of games, messing up my stuff, going through my room when I wasn't at work and all this, and I didn't even want that. So I just forced them on a PlayStation 3 at one point in time. And then it wasn't until I upgraded to an Xbox One that I migrate to a that I let them start playing 360. When I did that and they started playing 360, it was like I said, they never wanted to go back to PlayStation 3. Now, is the PlayStation 3 was it a fine machine for it to take? Yeah, it had its problem, but it was fine. But again, when it comes to digital entertainment like this, and interactive entertainment, it's hard once your experience has been heightened and you've been used to a set of an experience to scale it back. Again, it would be like, look, the Sega Genesis comes out, but then I got to deal with Nintendo quality games. Don't get me wrong, you can make a good Nintendo quality game, but I've elevated. This is technology. When technology elevates, so do your expectations. Hold on, who is this? I'm sorry. I apologize. Hold on one second. I have to have my phone on, sorry, because my car's in the shop and I gotta be able to pick up my wife. All right. Let me do this real quick because I can see it. All right. Okay. So that's how entertainment works. You know what I mean? Like, if you're one of those people to where the performance per generation really didn't matter to you, to where you could be in a PlayStation 1 era and go back to Sega Genesis quality games across the board and it doesn't bother you at all, across the board, that's good, but that's unique. That's unique. Because a lot of people, I would dare to say most, I don't have scientific proof on this, but I have experience as far as engaging with gamers on this, that when most people elevate in the performance that they get when it comes to technology, that's the performance they continue to expect. You know what I'm saying? So we're at a point to where we were introduced to a platform to where 60 frames per second was a norm. I can understand if 60 frames per second was like every other game or every fourth game, or it was like 50-50. No, it was a norm. And it was a norm for our big games. Doom, Marvel, Cyberpunk. You know what I'm saying? So, and what I don't get is if you got a game like Cyberpunk, that's a huge game, that's a massive game. So much to optimize, it came out in the state that it did, you know what I'm saying? But it was still the best place to play it next to PC, high-powered PC was on Stadia. What I can't understand is how, if you can do that with Cyberpunk and still have a 60 frames per second mode that where at launch, it wasn't the prettiest, but was still fathomable and it satisfied your tech enthusiasts. I have a hard time understanding why even Far Cry 6, even though it's a newer game, why they can't do it. So those are my thoughts on it. I think that there's definitely something going on. We know that. And we're going to talk about, after I get to your comments, we're going to talk about who we should address this with. But my preliminary comments are to our fellow community members. I'm not saying you got to take the exact stance that I take or that we take. But I'm begging you, please show a little bit more sympathy for this, because one day something's going to happen that's going to matter to you all. And we're going to sit there on the back lot and be like, on the bleachers and be like, so? You know what I'm saying? Like, for instance, I really don't care that much about 4K mode. Like, if I know that there's a 4K mode and a 1080p 60 mode, 99 times out of 1,000, 100. There's no situation where I'm playing the 4K mode. I may look at it and say, oh, that looks pretty, but I want that 1080p. Even at 1080p, I prefer for it to be 1440, you know what I'm saying? Or, better than 1080, but I'm going with the 1080p mode. Like, all the time. But in spite of that, if Stadia games started to have a lack of 4K mode, I'm going to be out in the brass arguing with y'all. I'm going to say, no, that's not right. That's not cool. That's not good. You know what I'm saying? Like this, that's not good. We need to ensure that there's a 4K mode. We get that there can't be a 4K and a 1080 and a 60 frames per second mode, but there should be 4K modes. If we started seeing this trend towards 4K, I would say that. That's what a community does. You know what I mean? Like, I don't go to the library, but I know people that go to the library, it's important to them in our community. If I'm hearing that a library is shutting down in the community that's important to other community members. I'm not saying, oh, what the hell? The hell with that damn library. Who still goes to the library and picks up print? I'm not doing that. I'm gonna say, yeah, this is important to our community. Yeah, well, how can I donate? How can I participate to help you guys? Because I understand we operate as a village. If something goes bad for y'all, I'm gonna chip in, and if something goes bad for me, hopefully you'll return the favor. So again, I'm not saying some of the stuff that I'm about to say in this stream, and you may hear from others, that's going to be your actual stance. But I would just caution the flippant nature about it. I think those that don't care about 60 frames per second may just be a tad bit, they may not realize it, but they may be a tad bit too flippant about it. And I'm not saying in turn that missing 60 frames per second, I'm not out here with the canoe people either. That are like, oh yeah, Stadia's gonna die. No, I'm not doing that. What I am suggesting though is that it is very discouraging to your tech enthusiasts. I get that the casual gamer that doesn't care about this, and statistically it may show it, so that's why there's a possibility where it may not be enforced as much as it is. I don't know. We'll talk about that in a little bit after I get through these comments. But I get all that, but at the same time, some of your staunchest supporters, some of the people that get most of the word out are your tech enthusiasts. They're your most hardcore gamers, and they got the deepest reach. And just be cognizant of how much you disenfranchise them, is what I'm saying. We don't want the hardcore people to disenfranchise. So yeah, I get it. The canoe people that are out in Stadia is going to die because of this. They're going to pull the plug tomorrow. Phil Harrison's going to be working at 7-Eleven, boiling hot dogs with all that crazy goofy talk. No, we're not going there. And this is still my preferred way to play. But I will tell you, when it comes to Far Cry 6, if this is the case, one or two things are going to happen. Either I won't be playing the game on Stadia, unfortunately. I'll just be playing other stuff. I'll be playing my Division 2 and the other games that run fantastic and run great on this platform. I either won't be playing Far Cry 6 on Stadia, or I won't be playing it at all, depending upon some things. I'm going to get to that in the back end, but let's make this the open mic that it should be. Let's get to some of your comments. Let's see here. Fandom Gaming says, I feel you. I'm 29 with bifocals. Yeah, laugh out loud. Yeah, I'm like borderline without bifocals, but I need like super special lenses, Fandom. So it's serious stuff, man. It's serious stuff to not be able to see and have all this digital stuff that you want to enjoy impact your vision. It's not cool. Stadia Pro founders, Vic says, have a reasonable expectation of Stadia providing 4K 60 frames per second. Stadia is backing off from that promise. That's a great comment, I feel, Vic. But I don't agree with that in totality. Vic is like, I'm shocked. If you're saying 4K space or 4K comma 60, yes, I will say that 4K comma 60, meaning one or the other, preferably both when possible, is a reasonable expectation, right? Like a 4K mode and a 60 is a reasonable expectation. And it's reasonable because that's what we were getting for the most part up front. And the reasonable expectation is that we all are aware that as the technology ages, it's supposed to get better, right? So if we were getting a lot of 4K 60 up front, we would expect it to stay the same or to get more, not to backpedal. That's what, you know what I'm saying? If you see it, if cloud gaming gets better because of the pipeline caches, for a particular game and the data collection, and if cloud gaming gets better by the day and you're front loaded with a lot of 4K or 60 frames per second gaming, then the expectancy is that the product would be able to do that amount or even more. Now, here's where I disagree with you in totality, Vic. You said Stadia is backing off from that promise. I don't think that's the case here. 100%. I think it's more complicated than that. I think that we're going to talk about the grays. Everything isn't black and white. We're going to talk about the grays in a little bit. Something's definitely going on. But I don't agree that Stadia is backing off like entirely from that promise. I'm going to talk about it. Monkey Boy says 30 frames per second is a waste of time. No reason to even release it if it's at the max. We're still getting 1080p 60. I'm confused as what's going on. I am confused too. I wouldn't say 30 frames per second is a waste of time though, Monkey Boy, because if we're going to ask the community, and again, I mean, I get your comment. I definitely get your comment, and I feel like that personally. But when you're looking things from a community aspect, we got to keep it real. Like people like Stadia Rev, shout out to PNTS member Stadia Rev. He don't care about that. He likes 30. He can deal with 30 frames per second. So I wouldn't say it's a waste. And I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm gonna say that a good portion of even Stadia gamers are fine with 30 frames per second. We see in some cases, I done seen in some cases, like, hopefully nobody gets offended from this. I done seen in some cases where, let's use Mafia for example. And I'm not saying this to be rude or mean, but I don't think the community at mass is really knows what 60 frames per second is or can determine it when they're not getting it. So that's why a huge swath of the community don't care in large part. I do want to have this as a discussion to show that there is also a significant sector that does care. So we're not completely dismissive of this. But I think a very large sector of the community don't care. They can't even tell what 60 frames per second is. Let me give you an example. I saw a video somewhere where someone was analyzing Mafia. And I'm watching the video with them. And they're like, yeah, this looks like a solid 60 frames per second. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, no, it isn't. Like, there's no way in hell. Like, I'm watching this with you. So unless what they were playing was even more solid than what I was seeing, which I doubt. And I see this all the time in the community. Like, a lot of us don't even know what 60 frames per second is. We don't know what a solid 60 is. Shout out to my brother Noah. I know this because for Broadband Bullies, shout out to my bros. For Broadband Bullies, my brother Noah and I, we're gonna work together. And Noah, if you're listening, I know you be sneaking and hiding in the bushes listening. Bro, you're supposed to call me last night. Normally I'm asleep, but I was literally up soaking up this second PC. So Noah, if you're listening, call me, man. Because things about to get crazy for me, and I don't know if we could talk after the fact. But my brother Noah and I were going to do 60 frames per second analysis for Broadband Bullies, like how Digital Foundry does it, and what's that other group, NG Tech or whatever they're called, Red Tech Gaming. So, and my brother Noah is proficient in all this, and he was schooling me on this stuff. That's why I said the beginning of MM2K's foray here is not Stadia Dosage. I love this community, my favorite way to play, but trust me, I got lineage that started before here. So we're going through all the technical analysis and going through different things, and Noah's showing me this stuff, and then we just made a decision not to do it. Noah was like, well, what it was is that I think my bro got a new job, or his job, or no, he was doing something else, and he's like, I'm not going to do this. And I said, oh, this looks too cumbersome. I'm not going to take it up. And then we just dropped it, and we went and did other things. You know what I'm saying, for Broadband Bullies. But I know what 60 frames per second is. You know what I mean? And I don't think a lot of us know what it is. So because a lot of us don't know what it is, we don't really care about it too much. You know what I mean? And I'm not going to be if I'm asking people to be not to be dismissive towards me, I equally don't want to be dismissive towards them. So I won't say 30 frames per second is a waste. I think if they do get exposed to 60 frames per second more often than not, they'll understand where we're coming from. But if they're fine with 30 frames per second, that's cool. I'm not going to say a 30 frames per second options is a waste of time because it satisfies a good swath of the community. I will say though that options are key here. So I'm with you emotionally, like options are key here. I agree with that, Monkey Boy, but I appreciate the comment. Thank you, my friend. Windstar said, yeah, we need options. See, great minds think alike. We need options, 30 frames per second mode at a lower resolution. Zero Games for me says the controls on Stadia at 30 frames per second feels really heavily sluggish compared to 30 frames per second on local hardware. I don't know how I feel about that one, Zero. I don't know how I feel about that one. When I play games at 30 frames per second on Stadia or Xbox, it all feels like trash to me. Like I can't tolerate it. Now, when I say Xbox, I mean Xbox One. I have no idea how 30 frames per second works on the Series or the PlayStation 5. It could be more stable. Who knows? But like Ghost Recon Breakpoint, you know what I'm saying? Like, I will say that and I think it's just the fact that there might be more experience with that hardware because there's more games on there and developers have had more practice. I will say that more often than not, than on local hardware, 30 frames per second for Stadia starts off juddery. Like Far Cry 5 at 4K 30 at first, to me just was unbearable. It wasn't just difficult to play, it was unbearable. But they did a hell of a job since then, and I think in lieu of Far Cry 6, they said, well, can we at least get this game to be like a flat 30? Far Cry 5 on Stadia, to me, is very close to playable for me. Very close. Almost there. And I'm imagining that's what hopefully that's what Far Cry 6 is. If Far Cry 6 gives you the performance that Far Cry 5 does, even at 30, even though I can't play it, then I think I think a large chunk is going to be happy. A large chunk of the populace is going to be happy. But again, I don't want us to be ignored, the tech enthusiasts. I don't want us to be flippant because I don't think that's solid community behavior. Again, we can have this conversation without talking, Stadia is going to die. Spontaneous combustion. We can have this conversation without that crazy canoe talk, which I'm doing. Stadia is still my favorite way to play. I just can't play Far Cry 6 on it, if at all. You know what I'm saying? So I'm kind of indifferent to that. I will say that it is sluggish, but more sluggish. I don't know if it's more sluggish than current consoles, because I haven't played a 30 frames per second game on a current console yet. I refuse. I didn't pay $500 for a PlayStation 5 for 30 frames per second. So if I know a game is 30, I'm not playing it there. But you know what I'm saying? So I don't know what 30 frames per second feels like on current hardware, but on last gen hardware, the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4, I don't know. I will say for the PlayStation though, for PlayStation exclusives, oh yeah, PlayStation exclusive 30 frames per second are leagues. They're in their own league. In their own league. Roman Stormborn says, I would almost choose a higher frames per second over a higher resolution. Depends. I get, like, a lot of people can do 1080, 100, or even 720, 100 frames per second. I can't do 720. No, absolutely not. And I get faster frames does affect visuals, but no, there's no way on God's green earth. I'll never do, no. 1080 is the bare minimum. My preference is at least around 1200p to really 1440p. But great comment, Roman. Good to see you here. 1030 Media Group says, brother, breaking news. What's the breaking news? Oh, look at this. He says Valhalla gets graphics mode tomorrow. Is that for Stadia? All right. We got to look this up. Let's look this up. Let's look this up. Dude. Great news. Hold on. That's great news. Shoot. Give me that. Give me some give me some skin. Oh. Hey Ralph, can you send me the tweet? Or send me a link. I appreciate that, brother. If you can send that to me, I appreciate that. I'm trying to look right now and see if I see where Valhalla. New Stadia save point. Oh, okay. Hold on. I see it right here. Shout out to Stadia Source. We're gonna put it on the screen. Give me some skin. This is good. This is good. And this is why we have to see. Here's what I want. And another thing too is I need my friends that don't care about 60 frames per second to understand this. The old saying in the streets, closed mouths don't get fed. You know what I'm saying? Closed mouths don't get fed. Oh, shoot. What the hell was that? Closed mouths don't get fed. Feel me? Meaning if you don't open up and say nothing and just accept it, then that's what you're going to get. Why not have a scenario where everybody's happy? Like I think we can have a responsible discussion where we talk about the needs of the platform. We can really be a beacon of light for other communities. Because I'm going to tell you, in other communities, they can't have these discussions. If you're a fan of Xbox, everything that comes out of your mouth about Xbox has to be positive or they'll exile your ass. You know what I'm saying? Trust me, I know they done attempted to exile me plenty times over. You know what I mean? And if there was such thing, you know what I mean, they would have done it. So we could be a beacon of light to other communities, to where we can sit here and talk about the needs of the platform for it to be welcoming to all as much as possible, welcoming to its core demographic. And you can't satisfy everybody all the time, but so it can be as welcoming to its core demographic as much as possible. We can talk about that and have responsible conversations without there being fear of canoe talk. And what do I mean by canoe talk? Yeah, Phil Harrison is going to be pumping gas like David Chappelle on that episode of Keeping It Real Goes Wrong. We can have those conversations. And when the canoe people come in, we can say, no. This is not an opportunity for you to spread your Stadia hate. We're going to sit here and have a reasonable, fathomable discussion about something that we feel like could get enhanced or be improved. But we're not going to paddle out to the canoe boats with you. No. We can do that. See, right? This now all of a sudden this comes out of nowhere. Update 1.32 will arrive for Assassin's Creed Valhalla tomorrow, and it will add the option to play the game in 60 frames per second on Stadia. Shout out to Stadia Source for this. Big news. This is another big Assassin's Creed Valhalla will sell in update, I guess they meant. If anybody from Stadia Source is watching this. Another Assassin's Creed Valhalla update will sell in tomorrow, October 5th, 2021, and this patch will bring a much welcome update for the Stadia version of the game. From tomorrow, update 1.3.2 will give Stadia players of Assassin's Creed Valhalla the option to play the game in 60 frames per second. The option will be added to give players that choice either to play the game in performance mode, which will prioritize the frame rate, or image quality, which will prioritize image quality and graphical fidelity. You can see the full notes below. This is promising. This is promising because the reason behind The belief system on why we weren't getting these 60 frames per second modes were that the engines just were not optimized, and it just wasn't capable with the engines under the current configurations of Stadia. That was a lot of the talk. And again, a lot of that talk maybe just is a lot of educated guesses because we're not getting hardcore details on what the hell's going on. Assassin's Creed is developed on Anvil engine. So there's Anvil and there's Anvil New. Anvil New houses Immortals Phoenix Rising and Watchdog Legions. Anvil is Assassin's Creed Valhalla. So if on the older version of Anvil, if they're able to get a 60 frames per second mode there, that shows you that there's a lot of work being done, even though it's almost a year later, but there's a lot of work being done to enhance these capabilities. Now, I gotta be honest with you. I love Stadia so much, and I love playing on it so much that I haven't gone far in Assassin's Creed Valhalla for the simple fact that it didn't have a 60 frames per second mode on Stadia. And yes, I could play it on my PC, but I didn't want to get too entrenched in the PC experience because when I wanted to stream, I would have had a problem. I would have had to do what I did last night, whip out the second PC so I could stream with all the fidelity and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Because I love streaming games. So this is great. This is great. And this shows that stuff is being done because there is a level of attention being paid to the tech enthusiasts on Stadia. Great stuff. But I will say this. Even though it's good to see this is a year later, and we would like to know, with all of us that have paid into Ubisoft Plus and maybe paid into Ubisoft Plus way before it came to Stadia, is this enough support for 60 frames per second modes? Let's talk about that. Let me know what y'all think about that in the chat. Even though this is good news, is this enough to be bringing it later, a year later? Like Ubisoft, again, we expect a lot out of Ubisoft. Ubisoft has done a lot of talk as far as their partnership with Stadia, and we've seen what well-optimized Stadia games can do on the platform. I get it's a Snowdrop engine, but we've seen it. When they really put their foot into something, we've seen it. So it's great to see this. Thank you, Ralph, for that. Appreciate it. Who else we got? What else we got here? Geek says, I care more about 60 frames per second in 4K, but either way, it should be a norm for Stadia. El Boogie says, people are just sharing opinions. It's not that serious. El, I don't know if you're talking about someone else's comment in here or just in general. If you're talking about in general out in the entire Twitter sphere, I'm going to say that's not true. I've seen numerous accounts where, because people are disappointed in this, that those that are disappointed in this were called babies. Stuff like that. And like I said, I just don't think that that's good community-wise, because it's going to set the precedent to where something along the way may come that will affect you all. And the 60 frames per second brass is just going to sit there on the bleachers and say, so, stop being a bitch. You know what I'm saying? It's going to be like a tit for tat. And that's just not a good way. Like I gave the example earlier about the library. Like I don't go to no damn library. But people, like, they rebuilt this big library right up the street from my house, because in this community, people going to a library is important. It's just one of those communities. You know, and there was a big campaign around building this library and, you know, extended it onto the community center up the street. And I donated towards the cause. Out talking to people and all this other stuff, you know what I mean, about it. So you could be empathetic or sympathetic towards it, towards something, even if it's not a big deal for you personally. I just, when you're thinking of a community mind state, you get out of your own shell and you start sympathizing and caring for others. And being that we see a lot of stadiums hear about 60 frames per second, I'm addressing the flippant attitude. Not people saying, oh, well, 60 frames per second doesn't matter to me. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about those that are looking at this conversation and they're like, oh, they think that this conversation shouldn't be had. Those are the ones that I'm talking to. I just don't think that that's setting a good precedent, because it's going to end up it's going to boomerang back and it's going to bite you. You know what I mean? Those are just my thoughts. Monkey Boy says, now I wish that the true Phil Spencer Harrison deserves to be working. No, I wouldn't say that. He has failed miserably to do anything for this product, and that's a fact. No, I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that. No. Phil Harrison, there's this caricature of Phil Harrison that we gotta separate ourselves from. If it wasn't for Phil Harrison, you likely wouldn't have seen a Naughty Dog at Sony. He's the guy, his team discovered him and Yoshida signed him. And he tells the story on IGN Unfiltered. Listen to that episode with Phil Harrison. There's so many things that he's done in the gaming community. He's just quiet. He's a quiet, behind-the-scenes type of person. He's not braggadocious or boisterous. He doesn't be on Twitter. He doesn't come out with the limbo show. That's just not him. He likes to work behind the scenes and just bury his head down and get things done. And he's done way more positive than negative. And I would even say for this platform. The only thing that there's two big missteps that I think Phil Harrison made. Misstep number one was in the rollout of Stadia. Like, I think Phil wanted to capitalize in all the positive energy Stadia was getting. But what Phil should have realized is that positive energy that they were getting at first, you know, when Stadia was first brought to existence to the community, is that was anti-Xbox reaction. Oh, Game Pass sucked. Like at this time, remember, people thought Game Pass sucked. Game Pass sucks, so because it sucks, hopefully Google will come in with his bags of money and this is what they'll do. And Google went and presented and said things, and they were silent on certain things as it related to that. Or when they said things, it was, you know, two people, but it really didn't get any traction. And it wasn't until somebody asked them directly, well, what are you doing? Oh, you're not doing that. You're not trying to be a better Game Pass. Oh, phooey. Oh, what? And this is all in the cloud? Oh, phooey. So I think he kind of went a little bit too far in trying to capitalize on that, you know, and I think the rollout too should have been handled better, because Phil Harrison has decades upon decades of experience. He knows all about communication and how it should go. And the people that were out there in that AMA talking about, well, we don't think that we can reach our goals, or we're not sure that we can reach all of our delivery goals, but we're willing to hand deliver Stadia premieres if we want to. If it takes that, you don't say nothing like that to a gaming community. That's asking to be land-based. So I think the rollout and the anticipation of how many console people you could get over, I think that may have bit them in the butt, the way that they handled that in some cases. A lot of it was just ignorance from the media, but I think, you know, they had some role to play in that too. And I think another big mistake that he made from an executive level is when they closed down SG&E and they asked him, why was you doing this? And he brought up, Microsoft. I don't think that was something to bring up, because that ended up biting them and hurting them as well. It shouldn't have, but perception is 9/10 of the law. If I was holding that meeting and I would have said that at the level that I was at, I probably wouldn't. I would have got land-based. I'll put it like that. I would have got seriously land-based by my boss. Like anything that could seep out and hurt us, you know, you express your condolences for the situation. You express your sympathy. You try to be as transparent as you can while keeping in mind the security of the company. And there's just some things that you just can't say. And that was one of them. So if there were two things that I would say that Phil Harrison could have done better, that was that. But to say he hasn't done anything for the platform, a 1% business, that engagements grew like 200% within a year, that even on bad days averages 1,000 new engagements every day, that had that fantastic month, 600,000 new users in the month of December, that did a lot of stuff. I mean, this is just a new platform. These are growing pains. If you think this is bad, I hope you didn't have an OG Xbox. You know what I'm saying? When you kicking your OG, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, so yeah, there's some, I'm not saying Stadia is perfect, but a lot of these are growing pains. And I wouldn't say that Phil Harrison is doing a horrible job. He's navigating a 1% business. And from all the, look, I do a show every month with one of the smartest people that I've ever met in my life. And I do a lot of data analysis. And I told Jack this. I said, if you would come to my company and do this, like, they would probably give you $1 bazillion. Because I work with other people that do data analysis, and I want to strangle them sometimes. And your capabilities are like insane. But Jack Deslip, and he extrapolates data and gets us close to numbers and activity and trends and spikes better than anybody that I've seen. And so from stuff that I've researched and stuff that I've been shown and stuff that I just see from Jack, and Jack shows you all every month, there is no indication that Stadia is in trouble. For a 1% business, it's on a good trajectory. Is it on a trajectory to bang with Xbox and PlayStation right now? No, but that's not its purpose. Have there been missteps along the way? Yes. But I'm indifferent, and I get that's your opinion, Monkey Boy, and I'm not trying to slam you for your opinion. I just wanted to put it out there for those that may not be experienced to Phil Harrison's contribution. I think of it differently. I think that he's navigating this business through as in a 1 percentile business sector. I think he's doing a good job. The lack of transparency in some things could be better. You know what I'm saying? I will say that. They keep some things too close to the vest, and it ends up hurting them in the long run, because what it does is it allows the canoe people to drop this crazy stuff. Like when you don't have regular communication on core needs and things with your community, you leave too much open for interpretation. And I think they still got to get better at that. I know to where they want to keep things under wraps for a large part because of the media and stuff like that, but they got to open the transparency a little bit. I think there's still a lack of transparency, just a tad bit too much. You know what I mean? But besides that, I think they're doing a good job navigating through a 1% business. You know, those are my thoughts. Ralph says, bro, I've done that. I'm honestly sorry. I've always said the option or toggle should be made available. Yeah. Yep. Totally agree. Let's see. Let's get some more people in here. Guaranteed 60 frames per second on a streaming platform is a stretch. Why? And I mean, this is a new user. That just shows a lack of understanding of the technology. It's capable of doing it. It's just what it is just effort. That's why I say, well, I'm gonna get into more comments and then I'll give that part and then we'll wrap up. Roman Stormborn says, I'll play on Xbox and I'm about ready to cancel this Ubi plus BS because I'm gonna have to buy any game I want to play at a higher FPS. Yeah, play it on Luna. Yeah. I don't know. Here's what I would do, Roman. Like, I have a powerful PC. I know it's $10 a month, another $10 a month, and you may not want to do it. But contemplate, like, check out GFN. See if how GFN works for you. Or you could try Luna. That is true. And with Luna, you will get a 1080p 60 frames per second mode. I don't know how good the stream quality is going to be, though. That's my problem with Luna. It's like, I don't enjoy the stream quality at all. You know, except for the only game that I enjoyed it on, you know, where I played all the time on Luna was Immortals Phoenix Rising. I think that game played really well on Luna. But the stream quality with other games I really didn't like. What I mean by stream quality, graininess, and pixelation and stuff, I just didn't. That's me. Other people may enjoy it. They may not get that, or whatever the case may be. But try them out. Like, right now, to me, it's too early to expect the world from any cloud gaming platform. I mean, if you are satisfied, like, there are people that, with this 1080p 30 or 4K 30 version they're happy. And Stadia is the world for them. And I don't want to take that away from them. They're not wrong or they're not disillusioned. They like what they like. But I think for the average gamer, even those that love this platform, I think you may be hamstringing yourself. And if you love Stadia, if it's still your number one way to play, but yet this news is sombering to you, I think what this is Stadia doesn't have to no longer be your number one way to play, but you're going to have to supplement it with something. That's all. And Stadia is aware of that too. They said earlier on, while we're building this, we're in the building phases, you might have to supplement this with something, or people might just generally leave altogether and come back. But to go to any cloud gaming platform, and I have all of them except for Shadow, to go to any cloud gaming platform and expect it to have everything, when sombering news like this hits, and if it's sombering to you too, I think this is just a wake-up call that, hey, maybe you got to supplement it with something else. That's okay. Stadia is free $99. You just pay for the game. You know, to access GFN, you got to pay $10 if you want to consistently play. I get that. And then, you know, there's some cons there that you got to be concerned with. But the pro might be that the game will work for you. So try it out. You know, you don't get to exercise the return policy depending upon where you bought the PC game from. But, you know, where you can, try it out. If you have Ubisoft Plus, try it on Luna. If you got to play it on Luna, then that's fine. You know, you won. But to have any of these platforms, to have just one of these platforms right now, like I'm grandfathered in. So at $5 plus 10 for Stadia Pro plus another $6 for $21 a month, I get all three of those platforms. And I think it's a smart way to go, at least right now. Maybe in like 2023, 2024, as these platforms really like boom, then you can start saying, okay, and you really start seeing all the games coming to Stadia, you know, bigger channels coming to Luna. Then you can start probably focusing more on one platform. But if this news is sombering to you, again, it's just a wake-up call that you got to expand your portfolio. Geek the Sneak says, when I was playing Division 2 on Stadia, fluctuated between 50 and 60. I noticed that last night when I was recording. And it does that sometimes. You know what a secret that I did, Geek, is I hit the Stadia button. I went into the connection, and when I came out, it went away. So get that a shot. Twisted Barber in the house. He says, one of the reasons why I and others believe that the pro subscription should be just about the games and not about the 4K 5.1, which should come as standard for the developer to implement. Yeah, I get it. I mean, and it causes less confusion. I'm with you on that one, Twisted. Envy Gaming says, it is just that this gives ammos for Stadia haters. Look, this is a problem that the Xbox community had. Well, when I would try to talk to them about certain things, they would come back and they would say, no, don't talk about that. No, no. Like, when you bring up issues and you do it responsibly, and we do it responsibly as a community, like, people have expressed their opinions and they're showing their anger in a lot of ways, and I get it. But there has been no comment that I've come across right now where it's like totally crazy, insane canoe talk. Whether I agree with it or not. So this right here that you guys are responsible for, this right here is an example of a responsible conversation. Now, I just had a, engagement with a monkey boy where I told him that I don't agree with his opinion about Phil Harrison, but it doesn't mean that his opinion is invalid. I think it's something to consider for people. I have my thoughts, he has his thoughts. But I don't think it was too out of the norm. I just think that in looking at things through a different perspective, I came up with a different answer than him. But I haven't seen any canoe talk here. I haven't seen any canoe talk. All been responsible despite people showing their frustrations, all that stuff. That's how a responsible community acts. Nobody is saying, Stadia's dead. I mean, people are saying, I'm going to leave. And there's nothing wrong with that. And if Stadia hears that too many people might leave about this, then they might engage differently to try to remedy this. So I think that's great. So now I think that it's good to have discussions. Hold on, let me check something real quick. Raven Anime said he sent me a link. I didn't see it, Raven. My bad, bro. Did you send it to Stadia Dosage? If you send it to Stadia Dosage, I'm not gonna see it until we go off here, unfortunately. Let's see here. Who else we got here? Case Ball UK in the house says GFN 1080p 60 FPS RTX on. Yes, there's all those options available, Case. That's if people can tolerate the stream quality. I think, look, we got to be honest here. With Stadia, opposite of Amazon having the least amount of games on the platform, I still think there's a lot of good games on Stadia, but them out of the other streaming having the least amount of games, definitely out of GFN and xCloud, and different variety of games, even though I think there's a great variety there. You know what I'm saying? And being that most of the new stuff is stealth dropped. We got to be honest here. If GFN had the stream quality, the reliability of purchase of Stadia would be blown out the water. Like there wouldn't even be any talks about it. But because of Stadia's technology, because of the reliability of purchase, first and foremost, that's why a lot of people stick to Stadia, and it makes perfect sense to me. So it is true that GFN will have 1080p 60 with RTX on, but it reminds me of a situation where I was doing some analysis of Cyberpunk. I played Cyberpunk on Stadia through my CCU, and then I played it on GFN through something else. And I remember my wife came in and she said, oh my God, she said that second image looks so much better. Like she don't know nothing about gaming. And she was referring to Stadia because the first time I put it on GFN, and even though there were the shadows and all other stuff, the image quality wasn't that great. So I don't want to sell anybody a bag of goods. You could see what GFN is offering and be like, oh, okay, this is fathomable for me. This is a great alternative. Thank you for pointing that out to me. You may look at that and you may say, oh gosh, I can't do this either. You know what I'm saying? But just so you're aware, the option is out there. Go check it out. Let's see who else we got here. Look at everyone who was able to play 60 frames per second that were 30 frames per second on next-gen consoles. They'll love the replayability because 60 frames per second is a game changer. I agree with that. I do agree with that. All right. So before we get out of here, I was just saying, yo, Christopher Torres in the house. We got Avery Bobo in the house. This is big facts. I wasn't involved in gaming news before Stadia, so I received it without expectations. Loved it. Real bummer to find out so many voices online received the wrong message at launch. Yeah. Lord Vivek in the house. He said, I can't tell the difference between 30 and 60, but this news is making me consider canceling Far Cry 6. Only really buying it so I can give my family the premiere edition. I want to talk about that. Lord Vivek, you know what? That was a great segue into what I want to talk about. I may not buy this game, and I may not play it, and I may cancel my Ubisoft subscription. Here's why. When it comes to figuring out why this has happened, you got to ask yourself, why is it all of a sudden, like with Doom, with Marvel, with Cyberpunk, opposite of Doom, Marvel and Cyberpunk weren't the most optimized games at launch. They had issues, and they all had, fairly decent 60 frames per second modes. You know what I'm saying? And among other, there's other games. There's a whole slew of other games. Why now all of a sudden are games not having performance modes? Like, has it gotten to a point to where the developers have said, you know what, Stadia, you're not a big money maker for us. Be happy that we're supporting you. And then in that scenario, what is Stadia supposed to say? Well, don't bring us your game. Like, it's a catch-22. The catch-22 is Stadia needs more games. The flip side of it is people are willing to put the games on there because they took the bag, but the quality that they're willing to put it on there, they feel like they're not going to invest in it because they'd rather use those resources to make the games on PlayStation and Xbox and PC look better because they're going to get more money there, or even the Switch. So I think the best line of attack is to speak with your wallet. Like, we need answers from Ubisoft as far as I'm concerned. We need answers from Ubisoft. So, Ubisoft is going to have to explain why, with all this experience, with this close relationship that they have with Stadia, with the fact that, Immortals Phoenix Rising, they could whip out 60 frames per second. Why can't they do this for Far Cry 6? Like, we need an answer. And I'm not saying give us an answer. You're lying to, give us you're going to have to be transparent about this because you are the developer. So first and foremost, I'm going to Ubisoft, and Ubisoft needs to give us an answer. They need to give us an answer. Like, they need to tell us, because I'm buying your product. I'm a consumer. I deserve that answer. If the answer is, well, look, guys, Stadia is not a premier platform, and we put, it's all about resources. Okay, I appreciate that answer. And I can say, well, it's my preferred way to play. And as far as I'm concerned, $60 is $60. We feel that you should at least put a, 60 frames per second mode. We feel that you could do a upscale 1440p to 4K on this game, but we'll settle for a 1080p 60 mode until, later. We'll settle for that. People can respond to that. But just being mum about this, I don't think is acceptable. So we need answers from Stadia. I mean, not from Stadia. We need answers from Ubisoft. Now, if their response is, look, there's a problem with the hardware. It's too cumbersome to do, and it's just not plausible. Like Stadia needs to up, like the current Stadia configuration just does not support us doing it. Then we go to Stadia and we be like, Stadia, it's time for you to unleash the Kraken. I mean, because I've talked to the people at Mantis Games. They were here. Storm and I, we talked to them. They told us they've seen it. They've seen the quote unquote Gen 2, whatever it's called now, whatever it's referred to. They've seen it. We've heard murmurs from the people from Chorus, even though they deleted their tweets. We've heard about it. What was the people that developed Blue Dragon? They said, oh yeah, like we've seen it. We've seen better performing games. So we know it's there. Is it the current configuration? If it's the current configuration, then we turn back to Stadia and be like, look, we love this platform, but you can't be moving backwards. If this problem is a problem with the tech, then you gotta unleash the Kraken. We know it's there. You gotta put it out there. I know maybe you were planning to do it next year, but we're spending our money. You gotta, you know what I'm saying? So I think the fathomable thing to do is to go to the developers first and say, look, what is going on? Especially my Ubisoft Plus people. If you got Ubisoft Plus and you sign up for the cloud, they gotta answer you. Because you've bought into their ecosystem before the game even came out, hopeful that it plays decently on Stadia under your expectations. And your expectation is a 60 frames per second mode. So Ubisoft should be answering you. So that's my call to the community. Regardless of what you feel about Stadia or feel or whatever, I get that. But fathomably, first and foremost, we need to go to Ubisoft and demand answers. What's going on? Go to these developers all together. What's going on? And let them tell it. Look, we just don't have the resources for Stadia, right? Let them tell it. And if it's something that we can go back to Stadia and say, okay, well, these people are expressing this, that, or the other. When are you going to do X, Y, Z? So that's no longer a problem, a roadblock. That's what you got to do. It's the only way that I feel that you can make fathomable progress. Again, have the responsible discussion without the canoe talk. But again, don't just settle. Go to Ubisoft. Demand answers, especially if you're on Ubisoft. If you're on Ubisoft Plus, for the sake of Stadia, your ass shouldn't even be here. You should have been talking to Ubisoft. You shouldn't even know that this is happening if you're dismayed by this. We're about to cut off. I'm going to give you that opportunity. Go to Ubisoft, because I will. I want answers. How come? What's going on? You can't do 60. What? What's going on here? Explain this to us. We're consumers and we're invested in your ecosystem. We're paying into your subscription service. We don't like this. What's going on? Be honest with us. Then take it from there. But that's it. Let me go through a few more chats. Case Ball says, GFN is slowly becoming a cloud platform of choice for you. And that's cool. If it's a cloud platform of choice for you, that's great. I will say this though. In relation to GFN, you're seeing some big engagement numbers, but when you go read the analyst reports, they tell you that the overwhelming majority of that engagement are people that are on the free tier, people that are not entrenched into the platform, that are not tethered to the platform in any significant way. Like, in other words, they're not subscribed, meaning they're not paying, the overwhelming majority. They tell you that all the time. So, in the long term, GFN wants to change that, but right now they're not worried about that because it's just a supplement to their hardware experience right now. But if you like GFN, great. If you like it, I love it. But again, I'm not going to sugarcoat it across the board. Just like I'm not sugarcoating it with Stadia. I'm not going to sugarcoat it with GFN. Most of the people that I deal with that are still tolerating some of the things that give us angst here are tolerating it because when they go to GFN, they don't like the stream quality. And those that go to GFN might feel the same way. There are some games where it's great, other games where it's not. You never know until you boot up the game. What I suggest, my biggest suggestion is get all of them if you can. It's not that expensive. What I say is $21 a month. $10 for Stadia Pro. And you don't even need to pay for Stadia. But if you want Stadia Pro, pay $10 for Stadia, pay $10 for GFN, pay $5 or $6 for $26. I'm sorry, I can't even count, damn it. No. Yeah, I'm thinking to myself, I'm grandfathered into the $5 for GFN. $26. But you ain't got to pay for Stadia, so it could just be $16 and you buy your games a la carte from Stadia. But again, I don't want to make it sound like that, you're going to get a Stadia quality 1080p 60 over GFN. That for a lot of people, that's not going to be the case. Some may accept the stream quality there. Others ain't going to like it. But there's no harm in trying. All right, let's do a couple more comments. Avery Bubble said this lacking FPS mode could be a pandemic situation. Let me see. What else we got here? Windstar says, I don't think even the Far Cry games are 60 at 1080p because I know I will play. Yeah, they're not. They're not. A lot of Ubisoft games do not have a 60 frames per second mode. But now it's time to change. And we see here, let me go back here. A year later, they're able to add a 60 frames per second mode for Assassin's Creed Valhalla. But could they have moved faster? Like, we need answers. What's going on here? We were told like there were developers here on this channel. We've talked to them. We interviewed them. Yeah, we've seen the better performing versions of Stadia out there. But Stadia has to feel like that there's a time to bring them out. Now, could it be that Stadia feels like if they bring out this better performing hardware that the developers still are not going to put their oomph into it, like how they were doing the Xbox One X? That's a possibility. Just because you have better performance hardware doesn't mean that you just snap your finger and the game performs better. You got to put effort into it. The Xbox One X was a powerful machine, way more powerful than the PlayStation 4 Pro, but you really didn't start seeing that power until Red Dead Redemption 2. So that was like a whole year after the damn thing released, I believe. And you had a situation where God of War on the PlayStation 4 Slim looked better than anything on the Xbox One X at the time. That's because the moneymaker was with PlayStation, and I believe PlayStation was influencing people behind the scenes, and they didn't want to ruffle their feathers, so there was a lot of parity when there was no excuse for parity. So maybe what Stadia is concerned with is even if they unleash the Kraken, the developers still ain't gonna put their all in it. We still gonna get 1080p 30. That's a possibility. But let's not assume, let's not just guess and walk away with it and then turn off our mics on our podcast and make that known. Let's do the responsible community thing. Let's ask and press for questions. The first set of questions need to go to Ubisoft. They gotta go to Ubisoft because they make the game. What are you doing? Ask them. Bobby Shake Apple, he says, get a PlayStation 5, everyone. Play Far Cry Glorious 60 frames. Get your ass out of here, Shake. Couple more comments. Chris says, Stadia doing a hardware upgrade is the only way to get rid of all these 30 frames per second games. How are they going to make Pro Sub worth it if they can't deliver 60 frames per second at the very least? And Chris, I just brought that up. You may have put this comment out there before I put mine out there. That may not be necessarily true. And I used the Xbox One X as an example. The Xbox One X was way more powerful than the PlayStation 4 Pro. We should have had Red Dead Redemption 2 looking games all across the board. And we didn't. I think a lot of people were afraid to do that to upset Sony. But Rockstar, they're their own animal. They don't answer to anybody. And they pulled the bells and whistles out of that damn game. And we finally saw the power of the Xbox One X because of it. But a whole year in between when it released and when Red Dead came out, there was a lot of parity, slightly looking better. Digital Foundry finding this better PlayStation. There should have been no competition. So Stadia's concern could be, oh yeah, we're unleashing the Kraken, y'all. And these markets be like, well, y'all ain't making us no money. We don't give a damn what you unleash. You still getting 1080p 30. You know what I'm saying? So just because they put out better hardware doesn't compensate for the effort that has to be put into it. Xbox One X showed us that even though you got powerful stuff powering your platform, they still got to put in the effort. So that could be the problem. We don't know. But if we find out that they're willing to put in the effort, they're just waiting on Stadia to release the Kraken, that's a whole different story. Then what you're saying is, the answer to that would be that we got to go to Stadia and be like, yo, Stadia, when you want to unleash the Kraken, because come on now. You know what I'm saying? And lastly, Christopher Torres says, again, I think we're getting confused. It's the developers, not Stadia. There are other games at 60 frames per second on Stadia, so now I blame Ubisoft, period. And I get that. That's instead of guessing this, I get where Chris and Torres are coming from. I think you take Torres' approach first, and depending upon what Ubisoft says, you might have to take Chris's approach. It depends. But the responsible thing to do, let's go to the developers first. Let's have the responsible conversation. Stadia's not dead. Stadia's not dying. None of that silly, stupid, crazy canoe talk. But there's something that's worth addressing here. But that's it from your boy. I appreciate, love all of y'all. Thank y'all so much. I gotta go pick up my wife. And I gotta go pick up this car. So I appreciate all y'all. Thank y'all. And until next time, have a wonderful gaming day. And my spiritual advisor, Clive Linden, check him out. Get his thoughts on all this. Again, this is a well-rounded array of thoughts on this subject matter. And hear what other people got to say. But with that said, peace. Have a wonderful gaming day.